Thank you everyone for your attendance to Harnessing Innovative Green Tech in the NHS. It's our second event this year from Sustainability Partnerships. We've got a great lineup. I'll be doing a bit of an intro to our speakers, and then my business partner Nathan, he'll be running the Q&A at the end of the event. So it's an hour-long event, and what's one of the most really interesting things about the movement towards a sustainable future, for me particularly from a personal point of view, is looking at how technology can be embraced to create efficiencies, not just in terms of ecological sustainability, but also just efficiencies in the way that the staff within the NHS can do their jobs in a more sustainable and future-proofed manner by the introduction of cutting-edge technologies. So we've got some great panelists today who are going to talk about that and have a little bit more insight than I do on that. So first of all, we're going to have Kate Townsend. She's a programme manager at Greener NHS, and she's going to give us a bit of a presentation on what those guys are up to. We've then got Lugano. He's from Loop Cycles, so really interesting tech. I'm really excited to have someone, again, a little bit more tech aware than we are, that can share a little bit more info on that. And then we've got Piyush. He's an orthopaedic surgeon and green champion at the West Herefordshire NHS Trust, and also from Open Medical. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass straight over to Kate to introduce herself, give a little bit of background to what the Greener NHS are up to in the South East region, and then probably maybe to have a couple of comments after your piece, and then jump straight over to you, Lugano, and then the same for the final presentation. Appreciate everyone already saying good morning, and really appreciate everyone coming and sharing your Friday morning with us. Feel free, as always, to ask questions throughout and use that chat function to just you have conversations with each other and link up there as well. Okay, I'm going to go pass straight over to you. I'll go on to mute, and please share your screen and give us a bit of an introduction, please.
Lovely, thank you for that. So I'm just going to share my screen now, hopefully. Please do let me know if you can see that.
That's it, Kate, that's perfect. Thank you.
Wicked. Okay. So hi everyone, and thank you for having me speak today on harnessing innovative green technology. My name is Kate Townsend. I'm the programme manager for the Greener NHS programme within the South East region. So I'm going to be talking today about digitally enabled remote working, which is one of our key priorities within the Green Agenda. So it's a really exciting time for technology within the NHS at the moment. And Sajid Javid recently gave a speech at the HSJ Digital Transformation Summit, where he discussed the 4 priorities to use the power of digital to drive a new era of recovery and reform. It certainly seems to be the answer we've been looking for to address the backlog of COVID, and there are some great aims to use technology to level up across the NHS and social care. And really positively, it seems to be given the attention and the funding it requires. However, I was a little bit sad that there was no mention of sustainability within the speech. I think one of the key themes throughout my presentation is that it's really important to ensure the green agenda is embedded and sustainability is embedded as we think about digital transformation. So I'm hoping that a lot of you on the call will already know this pie chart and will have already heard about the NHS ambition to go net zero by 2040. So I'm not going to dwell too much on the slide, but there's just been a tremendous amount of work already done to identify where the largest emissions from the NHS come from. And it's been recognised that identifying what we call a carbon footprint plus, or emissions that are outside of the direct control of the NHS, is the only way we can hope to make the NHS truly net zero. And this is by no means an easy thing to do. So hopefully, with the aid of some wonderful technologies that my fellow presenters are also going to be talking about, we'll be able to reduce these significantly. Sorry, just trying to get on the next slide. So within our region, within the South East, we have decided to make our regional priority digitally enabled remote working. So priorities 1 and 2, the medicines and the travel and transport, are national priorities. But we in the South East have chosen our third priority to be about digitisation. And to my knowledge, we're the only region to have done this. So digitisation has been chosen to minimise carbon emissions by expanding digital models of care. So things like focusing on remote care homes, long-term condition consultations with primary and secondary care, providing virtual mental health offers, and supporting the continued use of remote monitoring and virtual wards. And I'll go on to talk about that in a little bit more detail shortly. And also, it's all about developing a flexible approach to virtual and home working as well. If you work in the NHS or work in digital transformation, you'll probably recognise that what I've just said really aligns with the digital transformation programme. And it's just really key to mention really that the green team sit within this digital transformation team. It's going to be one of the biggest challenges is embedding the green agenda within existing programmes, because there's no point on us just sort of talking about this in silos with other sustainable minded people. We've got to make sure it's embedded. So just to go into a bit more detail about this. So within the Delivering a Net Zero Agenda document that was published back in 2020, it talks about delivering digitally enabled models and channels of care within the sustainable models of care section. So what's really exciting about this is the use of digital technology. We can move towards being a more preventative healthcare system. So tackling problems before they become acute. That's the real aim. It will allow patients to take more control of their own care, empowering people, increasing positive experience, and hopefully as a result, recovery will become quicker. Digitisation will go hand in hand with supporting staff with their clinical decisions and hopefully eventually improving health and wellbeing of staff. So it becomes so much more than just looking at things through a digital lens. So what do we mean by virtual care? So there are two main strands going on at the moment, and starting with the right-hand side on the virtual wards, this is going to be enhanced care for patients who are acutely unwell, but for whom going to hospital will be riskier than being treated at home. So there may be patients who are set up by a nurse with monitoring equipment and an iPad, and they'll receive a daily MDT meeting just as they would do if they were in hospital. And it's used as an alternative to hospital admissions for those who might be at risk of catching COVID. Then we've got virtual care, which is a bit more of an umbrella term. It's got a lot of different things going on within that. And it's for those patients who require enhanced healthcare at home. So it might be for people with who require monitoring for chronic or long-term illnesses, or for those who are better placed at home for step-up or step-down care. So these concepts are quite at an early stage of rollout, and it's quite important to mention that each region are adapting their virtual care as required by their local demographic area. So what's my role in this? Because I'm not a clinician and I'm not very tech-minded myself, but I'm working really closely with my colleagues, as I mentioned, in the digital transformation team, to ensure that sustainability is thought about throughout and embedded. So we're conscious of saying that everything technical has a better carbon emission, but we're not really sure. This might be the case if we see hospitals and wards close as a result of people being treated at home. But we really want to know about what the impact of all these journeys might be when clinicians have to go to patients' houses rather than them coming all to one hospital. And the more we kind of unpick that, the more complicated a web it's turning out to be in terms of mapping the carbon. So I wanted to tell you quickly about a piece of work that we commissioned in December 2020. This was done by the Strategy Unit, which is an arm of Midlands and Lancashire Partnership Trust, and it was called A Case for Sustaining Digital Working. So we measured we measured the emissions for the change of working from COVID, focusing specifically on outpatient care, primary care, and corporate services. So 3 models were developed to assess the potential socioeconomic and environmental impacts. So that was pre-pandemic behaviours, peak pandemic behaviours, and a future of hybrid working. And this was to help better inform future decision making. We're currently engaged with them again to delve a bit deeper into the South East region, looking at ICS models of behaviour. So we've got 2 parts to this. So we're looking at environmental impacts of the virtual wards, virtual care, remote monitoring, mental health teleconference, and all those things I've just mentioned. And then the second part will be about travel behaviours for non-clinical staff and how remote working will impact the region. And in order to make decisions about the future of digital care, we really need to understand what it will mean environmentally. As you can see, there's a lot of crossover here with this piece of work and our other priority of travel and transport. So I also wanted to mention another project that we've got going on at the moment. So with colleagues from NHS Southwest, South Central and West, we're going to set up what we hope will be a geospatial hub for the Southeast. And again, we're at really early stages of development for this. So it's really exciting. I think there's so much potential this project could do as well. So what it's going to mean initially is that we will have a geospatial analysis to improve travel behaviours across the Southeast. So we'll do this by reviewing the travel behaviours and assessing patient challenges across virtual wards. So by receiving care at home and reducing the need to travel to appointments, this inherits hopefully what we're hoping will be a big carbon saving. So SCW will map the carbon savings of virtual wards by demonstrating the length of travel for outpatient and primary care appointments that can be conducted virtually. And then the second part of this will be about proposing ideal locations for community diagnostic hubs to optimise travel for patients and staff. So we're going to start these in quite small areas of the ICSs, and we're looking to make these scalable. And what I find really exciting about this project is that it can start to bring patient demographic data into online modelling, which can help support decision makers to evaluate which population groups might be more challenged with virtual wards. Which brings me nicely onto my sort of final slide about health inequalities and digital exclusion. So some people don't find the link between health inequalities and the green agenda very obvious. However, to me, they're very similarly aligned. We need to thread inequalities throughout all the work being done, just as we need to do the same for net zero. So it's vital to address inequalities by having an understanding of the demographic area, because it's going to be the only way to truly achieve a sustainable healthcare system. So it's making sure we think about patients whose first language might not be English, patients who might struggle with technology or who might not be able to afford the technology. There's an excellent document from the Good Things Foundation called Digital Exclusion and Health Inequalities that delves into exactly what digital exclusion is and what impact it's going to have on people's health. It also has some really useful links and some solutions as well. So it's got a great case study about this project called 100% in Leeds, which is a programme between the NHS trusts in Leeds and Leeds City Council to make Leeds the most digitally inclusive city for everyone, thinking about digital health hubs and things like that. So there's some really inspirational work going on. That was a really quick whistle-stop tour of everything that we're doing in the Southeast to embed digital technology within the green agenda. And there's so many things I haven't had time to mention. But I think the take-home message here that I really wanted to emphasise was how important it is to embed technology and net zero together. And I'd love to go into more detail about this another time. But thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Kate, for your input there. It's a great scene setter, I think, for the rest of the event, just hearing sort of from what's going on the inside. The virtual care wards, it's something that we've been learning a lot about over the last couple of years. So hearing a bit more about that's great. And also great to have you give a shout out to what's happening in Leeds, because that's where Nathan and I are based, and we are very, very proud of what's happening with the hospitals and the council. And it goes, far beyond just healthcare in terms of the digital inclusivity. And what became very, very apparent during the pandemic, and about school children and education and the disparity of those within the backgrounds where really they were sharing sort of one device between 5 people in a house. And there, as you say, there are links to the health of those people who say live in more deprived areas, air quality, those types of noise quality, even links between long-term illnesses. So yeah, the agenda on equality and the agenda on sustainability, 100%. There's that link there. So thank you for bringing that up and really setting technology as potential, at least a driver of change for both of those things. If you've got any questions for Kate, we've got one question. I'll bring that up. Nathan, you can bring that up at the end in the Q&A section. But please do continue to have all of your comments and questions there, and we'll pick up on those at the end of the event. I'm just going to close that Q&A. So next up, we've got Lagano from Loopcycle. So please give us a bit of an introduction to what you do. A very warm welcome to yourself, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight with us today.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much, Georgia. Good morning, co-founders and CEO of
That's better.
Oh, better? Excellent. Brilliant. So Loopcycle, we're essentially a digital platform that increases B2B supply chain circularity. And we do this by connecting an ecosystem of manufacturers and operators of commercial equipment in order to trace, manage, and recover products across their life cycle. So the problem that we're addressing really is this lack of visibility in B2B value chains. I'm sure many NHS trusts have lots of commercial equipment, and this comes obviously from these manufacturers, but a lot of the time they don't actually know who or where their products have been sold to. And this is because they sell via a distribution network. And then you as operators often have a lot of equipment, and inventory management means that you quickly lose sight of the various bits of equipment that you have across your kitchens, laboratories, and different estates that form your hospitals. And we got this very interesting insight by one of our manufacturers. And when we were talking to them about the idea of resource recovery, they were quite open, and they said, you know what, we're lucky if we know where about 20% of our products end up. So there really is this idea that the focus is on selling and route to market, but actually in terms of opening channels for those products to be recovered end of life, they really don't have a lot of access to that equipment. And also a survey by the Institute of Asset Management, Asset Managers in 2019, was actually really insightful in terms of exposing some of the drivers that asset managers find will improve inventory management. And those are around better asset management systems and innovative data collection. And that really is the place where we play. Now, what Loopcycle allows products wherever they go is a solution that will enable manufacturers to trace their products into operator sites, but also enable operators to trace their products between sites. This product you see here is a D1000 waste station by a company called EcoFast Environmental UK Limited, and they provide a sustainable solution for food waste. And now Steve, who's the MD, has a very strong ethos on sustainability, not just in terms of providing a solution that helps commercial kitchens be more sustainable in how they manage food waste, but also in terms of how his kit is assembled, how it's produced, how it gets to the operator, but also his potential to recover obsolete products and parts in order to recycle them back into his supply chain. So working with Steve has been, providing a complete end-to-end sustainability solution for products that are actually being provided into NHS trusts. But how do we do this? We believe in building an ecosystem of shared value, and we do this in three ways. Starting with the manufacturer, from the point of production, a manufacturer can trace a product through a unique code of provenance through to the operator. This is through something called a cycle code, and I'll explain about this a little bit later. Then, for operators, they can track, trace, and manage all of their commercial products in one complete digital inventory. This allows them to upload information on how that product is managed and maintained, and really store the history of that product as it goes through its life cycle. And when it's no longer required, it can be sold to other operators in the platform through a digital inventory, allowing some of those original CapEx costs to be offset. So the significance of this to the NHS, well, really the size of the NHS estate is around 6% of the total, and £700 million is actually spent on managing obsolete products, which is actually quite a huge amount of money for basically resource management. We touched earlier on the two carbon targets, one obviously on direct controlled emissions, and the other one on carbon footprint plus. And 2040, 2045 seem like a long way away, and they're really not. But what's really significant here is data from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation that says that 45% of carbon reductions required are around the management and production of products. And so really by responsibly managing and commercializing obsolete products, it's not just key to achieving carbon reduction targets, but also in reducing costs as well. So we're working with universities and also hospitals to develop smart asset management programs that we're piloting at the moment. What this requires is registering products into the Loop Cycle platform. This can be done manually or automatically, and I'll come to that a little bit later. Then having this unique code of provenance on these products that can be accessed through a smart device and interacted with via a smart device. What this allows is that the product information and the product data can be uploaded via the smart device into our Loop Cycle portal. And the manufacturers of those products on the platform have complete oversight on how that product is being managed and maintained over its lifetime. This obviously provides better information, which can unlock further circular and commercial value. And we often talk about there being, a lack of information that allows these decisions to be made. But also, in some cases, there is too much information. The challenge, I think, in all of these cases, what information is key, and then building a data relationship between those information points in order to allow the best decisions to be made. And these data relationships, we consider them to be absolutely essential. Internally, there are a number of acronyms here, but basically these are all different systems that capture customer data and capture product data, ranging from ERP and CAFM systems right through to basic spreadsheets. Now, what Loop Cycle does is designed to interact with these systems in order to draw the important data around a product and collect it in one place. Furthermore, on the external side, you have this supply chain that consists of the producer right through to end of life. And at each of these stages, there is data that can be captured that's important, that tells a story about how that product has been produced and how that product has been managed. We can draw those data points together as well. So really, this is about being a systems integrator that can draw different data points together to allow better decisions to be made. And what are these decisions? Well, it's not just about tracing a product from one point to another. But one thing that we've been challenged on is this idea around depreciation value. The moment a product leaves a manufacturer's site, it is depreciating. But at what point actually is the best point for a hospital, a university, or any operator of commercial equipment to replace assets? Typically, it's when they're dead. They're run down into the ground and then purchased at a premium. But actually, you could run different scenarios in the platform that allow you to calculate the best time at which additional value can be obtained, but also carbon and more efficient products can be bought in, and those obsolete products can be phased out. And then furthermore, in our marketplace, you can then sell those products knowing that there is a residual value to be gained on those materials as well. So we started with commercial things like, for example, refrigeration. There are various assets across a hospital estate that can be traced through Loop Cycle, right through to heating and ventilation equipment. But we've also had conversations about the impact of COVID and moving towards things like, for example, IT inventory, the movement from home working, from office working through to home working, and that mix, and how do you trace those assets? And as you can see, that empty office space is actually a resource. So actually, what about things like booking space? Can you actually tie in space booking arrangements to allow office spaces to be used for different uses over time? So really, this is about producing a complete built environment solution built on data and the ability to become more predictable in what you're doing. And finally, I want to conclude by saying that innovation does unlock new value, and it does this in a number of ways. It allows better investment decisions to be made, and it connects different data points to tell a better story about how a product is run and managed over its lifetime. And by doing that, it unlocks more circular opportunities. But I'll end with really saying that the most sustainable solutions will always require people, processes, and technology. And a big part of what we're doing is also engaging staff, particularly in the facilities management side of things, in order to understand the value of tracking assets and managing them better in this platform. So looking forward to any questions that you have and speaking further. I think I'll probably leave it there. Thank you.
Amazing, really, really interesting. In our sustainability agenda event at the beginning of the year, circular economy was one of the biggest things that people are talking about, and particularly it's become a hot topic, talking about things like e-waste, for example. You talk about electronic devices, but we're not just talking laptops and desktops, we're talking servers, and we're talking in the NHS even bigger pieces of tech, CT scan machines and things like that. We're talking about things that have been built, quite a few years ago, and they're full of heavy metals, precious metals. Creating a circular economy for these types of pieces of tech is so important, and it means that we're not taking these minerals out of the ground. We're pushing that accountability right down through the supply chain. So, but then adding that extra added value with the extra data sets that you guys are putting on top in terms of understanding the emissions based over time. I think that what you guys are doing is super, super interesting, really, really cool stuff. And just taking that accountability for people who are creating things that are selling out into the world, and just not thinking, okay, well, that's that thing sold. What about 10 years down the line? And I hate to say this term, but the cradle to grave mindset of being like, okay, I've built this, and sometimes, like I say, huge asset that's gone out into the market. How can I then think about where that goes at the end of life? And yeah, super, super interesting, super relevant as well. So thanks very much for sharing what you guys do there, Lagana. If there's any other questions, please do ask at the end. And we're going to move straight on to you, Piyush, please, if you want to introduce yourself and let us know what you've got to share today, please.
Hi, yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Piyush. I'm an orthopaedic surgeon by training, and I'm currently working at West Herts and one of their green champions. So I'm going to be talking to you today about digital transformation. So this is, as Kate mentioned, one of the key priorities of the NHS going forward. Now, digital is a phrase that's used a lot. There's a lot of three-letter acronyms. And I hope to try and be able to demystify some of the nomenclature around technology and help you hopefully make more informed decisions, particularly around clinical systems. So healthcare is a complex digital ecosystem. So how do you decide between sort of wanting specialty specific solutions, or whether you go for domains such as remote monitoring or rehab, or tackle those specific niche areas? So I want to focus really on an area that I know particularly well, which is the operating theatres. It's clearly one of the most resource intensive areas of a hospital, and as you can see from the figures, there is massive environmental impact. And really that impact from operating theatres comes from a number of different reasons. One is that the care pathways themselves are highly complex. There's multiple stakeholders, multiple touch points. The equipment we use is particularly, again, high technology with significant environmental impact. I think around anaesthetic gases, that's pretty well known. That is a huge issue, and many organisations, including my own, have taken significant steps to reduce anaesthetic gas use. Coupled with that, the huge number of patients that are going to be waiting for elective procedures. So the impact of operating theatres in general is going to continue increasing as that burden of disease continues to increase. And similarly, there's a lack of information and education of healthcare staff and education and patients, which again, the NHS is doing some fantastic work to try and address. But it's really about how do we take a lot of that information and really deliver it at the point of care when those decisions are being made. So I think that is an area where digital can really help. So for me, one of the key real take-homes around digital is transparency. So being able to add that level of transparency into that clinical care, into that environment, and help people make better decisions. And again, I think Lugano touched on this in his talk around, connecting that data, connecting those points to be able to then give people insights. So once you give that information, then hopefully that will help promote more sustainable decision making. And for me, really, technology boils down to three main areas, where one is around measurement. So how can we measure effectively impact of current processes? Then how do we use technology to promote sustainable decision making, whether that be clinicians, users, commissioners, or even higher levels above that, and then using technology itself as an enabler, so to enable those new models of care or different modes of delivery. So I wanted to talk a little bit around a case study we did at West Herts, looking at technology to manage the elective surgical backlog. So West Herts itself is a large organisation, deal with about 1 million patients visits a year, and have 15 operating theatres across all 3 of our sites, with over about 640 beds. And really, we wanted to try and streamline the whole surgical process from start to finish, and really end up creating a cloud-based surgical service which allowed regional movement of patients between different sites, interoperated with all of the existing infrastructure and digital systems that were in place, as well as allowing collaboration between clinicians, again, across site, reducing the need for travel, both of clinicians and of patients themselves. Cloud technology in and of itself has been shown to have a significant impact on carbon environment and being a much more sustainable way to deliver services. It also allows you to reach outside of your traditional organizational boundaries where sort of on-premises infrastructure may have limitations. So particularly with the move towards ICS and regional care delivery, cloud solutions really do start to come into their own. So with that, we wanted to really create a comprehensive solution that encapsulated all of the stakeholders and try to break down some of those silos. We didn't want to create a solution where the patient would still have to, say, travel to the hospital to have attendance for a specific department because they weren't involved. So really it was about creating a multi-stakeholder solution. So one of those aspects, which again is very well known, is around digital preoperative assessments. Again, with a digital first preoperative assessment approach, so questionnaires deployed digitally to patients, being able to collect all of that information for those patients that don't require face-to-face preoperative assessments, again, having all of that in a virtual or remote care environment. And again, just really minimizing the requirement for travel and keeping that as to only those necessary encounters. So the overall approach was with the whole digital transformation was to streamline, improve communication. And one of the key things that I think is often overlooked with digital is the being able to escalate. So yes, you may be able to have a digital first care delivery model on the whole, but how do you then escalate to bring that patient back into the face-to-face system? Because ultimately that is key, and a certain cohort of patients are going to require that additional level of care or additional monitoring. And then once you've done that, you want to be able to visualize everything across the entire patient journey. So there is a big move towards care pathway delivery. And again, I think for me, that is something that's going to become increasingly important in the use of digital to be able to enable those end-to-end pathways. Because yes, we can optimize a certain component, but until that benefit is seen across the entire process, we're not going to be able to really reap the rewards. And visualization is one of the key aspects of that. Similarly, once you visualize, then you can move on to sort of assessing risks and being able to then, as I mentioned, escalate and connect the correct people within the pathway, and overall just reduce any risk across that entire journey. The next iteration of what we're looking to do with our sort of PathPoint Surgicare solution is being able to capture and measure in real time the carbon effect of a patient's clinical pathway. So what that could be, how many face-to-face attendances have they had, how with an integrated anaesthetic chart to look at how many anaesthetic gases or what the dosage of delivery was, how long the surgical procedure time was. So being able to measure the effect of that entire pathway. We also want to optimize theatre scheduling. For example, a lot of theatres, they may be up and running without a case, and that obviously has significant inefficiencies. So being able to optimize that scheduling, reduce late notice cancellations, and maximize the use of resources that are being utilized. Similarly, we want to educate and empower patients and clinicians with integrated decision support tools. So the example I'll give you is if during a preoperative assessment process, if the decision was to consider a general anaesthetic, providing both clinicians and patients the environmental impact in context of choosing that approach versus, say, a spinal anaesthetic. And hopefully by providing that information at source, you can then influence decision making. And then overall, we're working towards creating a green dashboard for the entire organization with real-time carbon reporting to then provide benchmarking and being able to instigate effective ongoing change and improvement with digital solutions to be able to then continuously measure and improve going forward. Because as I mentioned, I think it takes us all the way back to that initial sort of mantra that I mentioned around measuring in real time, then promoting that sustainable decision making, and only once you've done that, then utilizing technology to enable those new models and care delivery. So what are some of the key findings that we've seen is, again, with effective digital data capture, we've taken down the number of patients that are requiring escalation to see an anaesthetist by about 10%. So again, 10% saving around face-to-face appointments for increased care. We're streamlining the whole process, so all the patients are being reviewed and actioned within a week. And again, we're able to sort of rapidly get through a preoperative assessment process through to surgery within 20 days. And again, helping to streamline that whole backlog. And similarly, sort of financial and other benefits we've seen. So we've seen up to £500,000 savings in staffing costs and up to £5 million in efficiency savings, whether that be through improved bed days saved, reduction in face-to-face clinics, and so on. We're able to triage referrals effectively, and again, through different models and different pathways with up to a 50% reduction in referral to treatment times. And depending on the individual use case and pathway, sometimes up to 70% of patients can be treated completely virtually. And again, the impact that has on bed occupancy and days saved, and consequently how the impact that has on sustainable healthcare delivery, not just on an environmental impact, but on a sort of financial and other sustainability metrics. So what are some of the key considerations surrounding the adaptation of GreenTech in the NHS, and really what's next? So I think, again, Kate alluded to some of this, is really being able to look at it as a whole patient pathway. So we've been very fortunate to work with the SBRI program, both on the Net Zero program around our SurgiCare product that I just mentioned, as well as the SBRI Cancer program around community diagnostic centres, and again, setting these up with a view to moving care closer to home, reducing patient travel, being able to address those health inequalities. And again, by having integrated full pathway approaches, being able to really move towards much more sustainable healthcare delivery models, and using digital as a tool to enable that. I look forward to, so thank you very much, and I look forward to taking any questions and having any further discussions. So I'll pass back over.
Thanks very much, Piyush. So if you come to our events quite often, You'll notice that I'm a little bit worse for wear today. I've contracted a throat infection, so luckily I'm actually going to pass over to Nathan, who's a partner in sustainability partnerships. I did want to sympathise with you, Piyush, the amount of acronyms in the digital world, working in digital marketing as well. I can tell you that it's just a sea of acronyms. But working in the operating theatres is something that we've learned a lot about in terms of those the anaesthetic gases and how bad they are for the environment. We have seen the hashtag Ditch the Desk being used quite a lot across our platforms since we ran an event specifically about that. But no, you're absolutely right in terms of sustainability partnerships. Our mantra, of course, it's about like the ecological side, and we do like to talk a lot about offsetting and planting trees and reducing carbon and all of those lovely things. But the thing is, sustainability isn't just about ecology, it's about absolutely everything within the healthcare system. And that's fiscal and economical sustainability as well, and the sustainability of the workforce, creating efficiencies, making people's lives easier, making their work life easier, better, and more efficient. That will always have a knock-on effect into ecological sustainability anyway. If we're saving time, being more efficient with resources, that's always going to have an ecological effect. So I really appreciate your time and your talk this morning. I think that might be the end of my discourse for today, Nathan, and luckily I've got you to pass over. So if you don't mind going through some of the questions that we've been asked, and if you have any of your own as well for the panel today.
Thanks, George. You're really struggling there. I think most of the questions have been answered in the chat. Just one thing from me. I read the other day that the web now emits more emissions than aviation. So obviously, as the whole work from home, kind of hospitalization from home, and the scanning and everything, is there an argument in the future when transport becomes more electrified that the emissions are increasing from kind of all the increased web and tech, where travel emissions are then reducing? So looking down into the future, there's going to be a shift now, and especially more activity on that side. Then is there going to be an increase from where it's lowered on the transport? Is it going to increase from that side of things?
And that's a great question, and something, as I sort of mentioned in the presentation, the more that we're unpicking this, how do we measure all these complete change of models of care, the more we're realizing how complicated it is. Because whereas a group of people will come to one place, and now we might be seeing up to 3 journeys a day from clinicians going to patients' houses to help them set up, depending on their level of need. We're not fully sure that will create a carbon saving. It might actually be worse, but with the travel particularly, and with the NHS going to an all-electric fleet, that will hopefully save some things. But it is definitely something that we are aware of, that not all of the changes that are happening might be good for the environment. And that's where we've really got to, I guess, where we're starting at now is a real okay, let's figure this out, let's map it out, because we don't quite know yet.
Yeah. I guess it's something.
That's what.
Yeah, to look to the future, and you got to monitor as it goes along, and how long before all transport is electrified. Is it, 10 years or more? But there'll be a definite shift between that, where it's an interesting thing. Obviously benefits of all the benefits of patients being at home, not necessarily being able to get to hospital, but the carbon kind of argument it's an interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to come in on that as well. It is interesting. So cloud technologies have been sort of universally shown to be more efficient than on-premises, because if you think about every hospital having to have an on-premises digital solution as the move towards EPRs and other technologies takes place anyway, actually you're rather than running concurrent parallel digital infrastructure at every hospital, you can have a single regional service, and yes, that one service may have more of an impact than each individual hospital's digital service. When you combine it at scale, the cloud is by far way more efficient. And For example, our cloud infrastructure partner, it has been carbon neutral for some time and is now moving towards, has made a pledge towards being carbon negative. So at scale, I think a lot of that digital infrastructure is also sort of reducing carbon footprint on the digital side. That's obviously slightly separate to the transport argument, but
yeah. And I guess as things develop as well, the emissions from the technology and the web are going to decrease anyway, and where they're aiming to become carbon negative, it's so there'll be a definite decrease. No, thank you. So yeah, there's not many more questions in the Q&A. If anybody does have anything, please fire it through. I don't know if you guys have got anything to ask between yourselves. Fire away if you want to have a.
Yeah, Piyush, I was really interested to hear about your presentation and the monitoring of sort of the efficiency of theatres. We're doing a project at the moment with nitrous oxide capturing, and I think we've been sort of given the idea that on a national scale we should be looking at reducing waste and auditing what we're doing, but we've got this other project that's going on about capturing and safe destruction of nitrous oxide. I'm not sure if you've heard about that.
I haven't heard about the capturing project, but I think it'd be great to connect and have a discussion, because so the work we're doing is in collaboration with the SBRI Net Zero program. So we're looking forward to pushing that on to the next phase, and being able to really understand in real-time monitoring of sustainability, which I think is something that would be fairly unique, particularly around the sort of clinical system aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be really interested to hear more about the project.
Great. Yeah, I'll drop you a line.
Question generally regarding the management of kind of clinical equipment, and when it comes to your site, some of the stuff is quite bespoke, I'm assuming, and I was wondering whether there is any, or whether there are any discussions with the manufacturers of this equipment around how it can be sustainably managed over its lifetime or recovered end of life. Does that feature at the moment, or has it just been really the fact that there have been so many health crises in the world currently that maybe the key is to actually get them in and get them being used? That's just a general question really to the panel.
I'm not sure.
Can anyone answer that?
I can sort of, as an orthopedic surgeon, I think as far as decision making goes, in terms of implants, sustainability is a fairly low. We don't really have visibility. A lot of the decision making is based on financial cost. So, we have multi-million-pound deals with major implant suppliers, and I think that sort of raises a very good point about when making decisions is accountability. So holding your suppliers to account, understanding their supply chain. And as far as I know, in sort of procurement decisions, there is a significant move towards having sustainability and social value and everything else being added. But I don't know specifically around devices. I know for orthopedics, it's certainly not up there yet. It may come in time.
I should mention as well that we've been, with the supply chain and with the national programme, there is sort of movements to make sure that our supply chains have also got a net zero agenda, and that's going to be in place sort of running from the next few years. It depends on the size of contract and that sort of thing about new contracts coming in, but they will have to prove that they've got a net zero agenda. And I think there's, I've been having conversations with people where they're saying when they decide to buy something, when they're procuring things, there's elements of quality that I've given and there's elements of cost, but there should actually be elements of sustainability as well. Yes. So I don't know whether, there's a whole big procurement team that are working on a national basis, and they're quite a big team, and I know that there's lots of work going on in the background in that area, and I think for sure it's going to be starting to be more of a priority over the next year or two.
Is it something like 60% of the NHS emissions are from supply chain?
Yeah, 62, yeah.
We do need to look into kind of ISO 14001 and all those sort of standards. It really needs to be looking at that as a starting point, rather than just, let's say, the cost. It's easy to buy cheap, but buy cheap, where's it come from, and what's what's carbon with that?
Exactly, but it's really hard to measure. That's the thing that we're you know, in a way we've done such a thorough job in measuring our carbon that we can tell that it's 62% of our emissions are from the supply chain. But how we reduce that when it's such an indirect emission is a difficult task, and it is something that's definitely a priority. But even measuring that properly and doing that, you know, having actual proper measurements in place is really hard. And I know, again, the national data team are working on this and hope to have some more measuring options for us in summertime, they say.
Yeah, no, it's difficult. In my other business, we buy products in from all over the place, and just to measure their carbon is near on impossible. You know, you've got to rely on them doing that work to then feed to you and be assured that that's what they're doing. So it's I feel your pain. We're a small organisation compared to the NHS, so it must be must be terrible. I've got a question from Mike Jones, probably for you, Kate, again. There does not appear to be much recent guidance coming through from NHS Digital / Greener NHS on the digital work stream. Are we expecting any national announcements?
So yes, I think the short answer is yes. I know I sat within the digital transformation team, but this is something that I'm not working on directly. But yes, I think it is coming through very shortly. I would imagine the next couple of months.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry, I can't give any more detail than that.
As long as it's coming. Right, that is all for the Q&A, unless you guys have anything else to add.
No, thank you very much for having us. You know, as I said, it's a really exciting time for digital tech at the moment. And I think as long as we keep that sustainability agenda and keep using these amazing innovative technologies to mainstream the agenda, it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, and that's why myself and George are here. I mean, George is more affair with tech than I am, but anyone out there with new products, give us a shout. You know, that's why we're here to showcase things like that, and why we hold these events. I mean, it's all a bit over my head, but like I said, George is very, very deep into it, and it's incredible what's going on out there, and it's really interesting. Like I said before, the carbon kind of benefits and how it's going to affect the future of the NHS emissions. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? I'm sure it'll be good, but yeah, it's really, really clever stuff.
And that brings us actually on to the next event that we have coming up. It's Earth Day. So what we always do is we align a sustainability partnerships event with the theme, the global theme for Earth Day, which happens to be investing in green innovation. So that's the next event that we have coming up on the 22nd of April. So thanks everyone for coming today. We'll be doing a write-up, and you can watch this back on the Sustainability Partnerships website, write-up of event, and then the video for the entire recording as well. Really appreciate everyone's support in wishing me to get well in the chat as well. So thanks everyone for your ongoing support of the Sustainability Partnerships community. Thanks so much to Kate, the Garner and Piyush as well. Really, really good. I mean, it's always the case that we can sit and talk for hours about this kind of stuff. And when it comes to tech, sustainability and healthcare, it'll change every day. Innovations happen all the time. We could sit for until the end of time to talk about what innovations are coming out, which makes it all the more exciting to work in this space. So thanks so much for your time, sharing your energy and your experience with us. Nathan, thanks for your support on sharing a little bit of the Q&A.
You need to get to bed.
And thank you everyone for attending as usual. Really, really appreciate everyone's attendance. And we'll see you again on the 22nd of April for the Earth Day Invest in Green Innovation event.